joining us here today. It's my honor to formally proclaim today, March 31st, 2022, as Transgender Day of Visibility here in Milwaukee. In a moment, towards the end of everybody's remarks, we'll raise a flag here with our hands, since we're on the inside today, to mark the occasion. Inclusion and respect are fundamental values. We cherish them here in Milwaukee, especially in our city government. This is important today, but not just today, but it's important every single day. And I want people throughout the city and beyond to understand that inclusion and respect are more than just moral obligations. Inclusion and respect make us stronger, they make us wiser, and they make us more prosperous.
Yeah, go ahead.
This proclamation and flag raising are just the start of my administration's work in support of members of Milwaukee's LGBTQ+ community. I aim to provide, or to improve rather, quality of life through increased services to the LGBTQ+ community, focusing on housing, emergency services, healthcare, safety, and taking a stand against LGBTQ+ legislation. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and a special thanks to Casper, who's here from my office, who's been working diligently on this effort and really helped to make this whole day possible. So thank you very much, Casper. And with that, what I'll do right now is read the proclamation and then bring up the next speaker. So if you bear with me for just a moment. It reads, Office of the Mayor, City of Milwaukee Proclamation. Whereas the City of Milwaukee proudly joins community members in recognizing Transgender Day of Visibility in Milwaukee for Thursday, March 31st, 2022, and whereas Transgender Day of Visibility is an annual event to acknowledge, celebrate, and elevate transgender and non-binary people across the world and here in the City of Milwaukee. And whereas Transgender Day of Visibility celebrates the beauty and resilience of transgender and non-binary people throughout history and recognizes transgender and non-binary people's continued contributions to the betterment of society, whereas Transgender Day of Visibility promotes gender as a spectrum and honors the numerous transgender, non-binary, agender, and gender-expansive individuals who live authentically in the City of Milwaukee, whereas Transgender Day of Visibility raises awareness surrounding the continued inequities faced by transgender and non-binary people, specifically by transgender women of color. And whereas Transgender Day of Visibility recognizes the incredible work of transgender and non-binary advocacy groups to fight for dignity and equal rights and build inclusive and healing spaces with affirmation and equity. And whereas the City of Milwaukee reaffirms their commitment to promoting the full inclusion of transgender and non-binary individuals in our community, believes it's an inherent value of all community members, especially transgender and non-binary people, and encourages all citizens to treat each other with dignity and respect, without exception. Now, therefore, I, Cavalier Johnson, Mayor of the City of Milwaukee, do hereby proclaim Thursday, March 31st, 2022, to be Transgender Day of Visibility throughout the entire City of Milwaukee. Alex, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Alex Corona. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a trans advocate and activist here in Milwaukee. Thank you all for coming. Today is International Transgender Day of Visibility. But to be honest, visibility without protection and destigmatization of the trans experience is dangerous, and it puts us in harm's way. Too often the trans community is told that we have to wait, that it will get better soon, that trans rights needs to be on the back burner, or that they should be deprioritized until it's the right time to focus on our issues. Time and time again, cis people center themselves on days like today and say, "We see you," but then won't take us seriously when we explain our oppression, or won't stand up to their family, friends, and coworkers against transphobia. I'm here to remind everyone that when life is better, easier, and more affirming for the most marginalized people, it gets better for everyone. Helping break down the false binaries of sex and gender and expression that only work to harm us all and keep us in boxes will liberate us all from strict gender roles that prohibit us from living as our truest selves. Visibility without action is violence. I'm asking for concrete and deliverable commitments and investments in the trans and gender expansive communities so they can actually thrive. But policies will only get us so far until we make specific efforts to change the narratives around trans people and queer people in this world. That means pushing back against all these conservative efforts to eliminate trans kids from sports and schools. That means investing budget dollars directly into the trans community in the forms of housing, employment, education, the universal basic income, expanded Medicare, inclusive healthcare, named protections, and whatever else it takes to make sure that everyone knows that Milwaukee is a safe place to be yourself. That means speaking out against hateful organizations such as the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, who are actively hurting us with their discriminatory policies against trans people. That means believing us when we point out power imbalances and incorrect assumptions or gaps in our laws and policies that lead trans folks to more harm. That means decentering yourselves and listening more than you talk when it comes to what trans people have to say. That means each of you doing your own internal work to think through your own assumptions and prejudices about queer and trans people so you can accept us because you actually see our truths, not just because you've been told that you have to accept us. It's not enough to say that we see you or we support you when trans people are nowhere to be found in city offices, councils, committees, and positions of influence. It's hypocritical to say trans lives matter and then arrest trans women for doing sex work and throwing them in men's correctional facilities. As we speak, my little brother Akari is a black trans man who is being held in the medical unit of the Milwaukee County Jail because of the way he was treated by ignorant correctional staff who refused to give him the dignity he deserves. A Milwaukee judge thought it would be best to further traumatize a young black trans man in jail instead of letting him continue helping his community through his position in Public Allies. As we speak, state legislators across Wisconsin and the country are planning their coordinated attacks on trans young folks in the form of anti-trans legislation and dangerous overstepping into who should or shouldn't be learned about and represented in our classrooms, libraries, and sports teams. These legislators are our elected officials. They work for us. Yet they're actively erasing us under the false pretense of protecting the children. Protecting the children means creating environments in which they can thrive because of what makes them unique, not punished because of what makes them different. If we are truly a place where everyone can succeed, trans people need to be heard and we need to be leading conversations, not begging for crumbs of representation and having to be grateful for scraps of inclusion. Our trans family is so beautiful and so strong, and we will always find ways to make sure that we have our basic needs met. This goal would be so much easier if everyone was on board with the idea that trans lives matter, that black trans people are precious and invaluable to our society, and that we see and uplift folks for who they are instead of who we want them to be. Thank you to the Mayor's Office for this proclamation and platform to speak today. Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to engaging with new city leadership in our shared goals of equality and liberation for the historically oppressed. Thank you. And it is my honor to introduce to you our beautiful Jocasta Zamaripa.
Thank you so much, Alex Corona. Leadership is saying the difficult, tough thing, and I always appreciate your valor in advocating for our transgender community and our LGBTQ plus community. City of Milwaukee, happy Transgender Day of Visibility. I am Alderwoman Jocasta Zamaripa. I am the first out openly LGBTQ plus member of the Milwaukee Common Council, and I know how important it is to lift up our underrepresented communities. As Alex just indicated, I want to express my gratitude to Mayor Cavalier Johnson. It is so important to have somebody in the executive branch, to have a mayor who celebrates our queer community, in particular our trans community, in particular our trans women of color. We know that transgender folks suffer more violence and discrimination than their cis LGBTQ plus counterparts and their straight counterparts. And so it's so important that we have these symbolic days, even though, as Alex just indicated, there is still so much work to be done to support, celebrate, lift up, and help improve the quality of life for transgender Milwaukeeans. But again, I'm happy to be here with transgender leaders, LGBTQ plus leaders like Alex Corona, who just got done speaking, and I have the great honor of introducing our next speaker, who is a leader in our LGBTQ plus community, and a trans leader and an amazing leader in the city of Milwaukee, and I believe a Public Ally alum as well. Thank you so much for being here with us, Elle Halo.
I appreciate the introduction by my good sister, Representative Jocasta. As a woman who can understand what it's like to often be the first in the room. My name is Elle Halo. I'm a Black woman with trans experience, an activist and organizer. And I came today to say that transgender and gender nonconforming people should not just be centered twice a year or on Trans Day of Visibility or Trans Day of Remembrance. Proclamations hold a place, but they are a long way from actually helping transgender people and gender nonconforming people and trans women like me. Last year in 2021, in Milwaukee, there were 3 violent videos of transgender women that were being attacked in Milwaukee and circulated, and that went viral videos. Also last year, shortly before our March with Pride for Black Lives Matter, one of our local younger ladies was missing, and it was a national headline case. The FBI were investigating for her, and there's a national search effort and a social media effort, but there was no local coverage. I'm the first transgender woman to be the community co-chair of the SAPG of Wisconsin, our state's HIV board. I'm the inclusion program health specialist for Planned Parenthood Wisconsin, where we have been providing gender-affirming care services and hormone replacement therapy across the state in a historic initiative to provide HRT through telehealth over the course of the pandemic. I'm also the Empower Her Summit facilitator for the National Black Trans Organization, Black Trans Women, Inc. And for the last 3 years, I've been a member of the Board of Directors for Diverse and Resilient, which is the parent organization of our Black Trans Women Support Program, SHEBA. Last year in 2021, I had the pleasure of to be the founding organizer of the Black Rose Initiative, organizing our state's first ever Black Trans Visibility Celebration Week and our state's first ever Black Trans March. I also hosted the first ever Trans Day of Remembrance rally at our state capitol last year. This work has been historic, but I want to do work that actually changes people's lives. I'm a survivor. Last year, I also was the first transgender woman to ever co-chair the Denim Day Committee with the former mayor for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Transgender history and the spirit of pride are alive every day. I have also been honored to be a part of the Inclusive Restroom Working Group with the Milwaukee Equal Rights Commission, where we are attempting to pass an ordinance that will convert all city-owned and public-owned restrooms into gender-neutral and more highly accessible facilities. I recently won the Best of Milwaukee Award for Best LGBTQ Advocate, and none of this makes me safer at home or in public or at work, and I'm underpaid next to my male counterparts. I do a lot of my work on a volunteer basis, and I want you to uplift trans lives and prioritize us, and don't claim to stand with us if you can't do it all year and not just on these awareness days. And with that, I'll say, let's get back to work, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for attending, and with that, we're indoors right now, but we still will ceremoniously raise the flag here. So I'm going to ask Casper to help me out with that, if that's all right.
Get my boots in the picture.